Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and some more Crimson Desert talk. Ahead of its release, PlayStation is putting out some new feature overviews, and the response to it so far has been very positive, probably because they revealed a lot of new features or just gave us answers to a lot of the questions we had, like about the different playable characters and that kind of thing. So let's take a look. Starting with the world reveals. The opening shot of this first overview is insane. Look at it. It's this massive space with a lot to look at, like this walled town on the right with a white and black theme, which continues as a theme with the different buildings littered around the open, such as this manor. You can see traces of the abyss with these mysterious towers, these pillars just rising up in the background, how the terrain drastically changes to the orangey red desert, a crimson desert if you will. And we know we're going to have a ton of ways to traverse around this from all the footage we've been shown before. They've now claimed though that the game is about twice as large as Skyrim, bigger than the map of Red Dead Redemption 2. This is Playable then, which is the continent of play. Obviously it's big, but what's there matters. Huge open worlds are cool, especially if they're visually satisfying, but there needs to be something there. And so far they've been promising a lot of dense features we're going to get into. But you can imagine it on two planes. There's the ground level where we're going to play a lot of, and then above there's what they call the abyss, which is a sort of mysterious ruins that we will engage with. This seems to be where we get our powers from, as the lead character Cliff here, as shown in this footage, is talking with some sort of white mage who gifts us those glider wings that we see a lot of the movement from Cliff in the future gameplay of. This white mage seems to give us the wings, and it's probably tied towards unlocking more powers. But anyway, we learn more about the continent. Playable is actually 5 main regions combined. So Hernand is described as a rich location with great mountains, rivers, and is actually going to be the starting region for the game. Very beautiful and lush with life. Another region is Pailune. That's the northernmost region, which obviously has some icy environments, and that's the original home of the Greymanes. After that, we have the very fancy looking demeniss, which might be actually that white walled city again. This is the political and military stage for the region, so this is maybe where you might imagine the capital. And we see the faction that resides here all across the banners that are across the city, this black and red with a golden symbol on it. Next is delesyia, at the forefront of science and technology. This is interesting because we know that the different factions are either friendly or hateful to one another. Like one faction's averse to technology, and obviously one's like very much centered around it. We see some crazy tech though, like the mech mount we're able to use. A mechanical style dragon's been shown in one boss fight, so we do expect the technology to be impressive, and they also seem very wealthy. The last region is the Crimson Desert itself though, described as an expanse of red sands and lawlessness. So there's probably not a lot of life there, no cities or towns, maybe just outposts and bandits. Probably a very dangerous place. We also got some more context for the story as well. Now, we know we're playing as Cliff, and we know that the faction of Greymanes was largely shattered. But what about the other characters and how they come into play? We actually start before the Greymanes are completely shattered, as shown in what seems to be the tutorial mission. So the Greymanes are like a faction of friends, a dysfunctional family, kind of like a mercenary band really. But after their leader dies, another faction, the Black Bears, takes advantage and ends up attacking and destroying a lot of the Greymanes. That's where Cliff begins his fight to sort of recoup the survivors and rebuild the Greymanes. But that goal twists as the bigger picture of the world and the situation that's happening with the strange magic invading, the abyss falling from above, things just sort of get a little out of hand. And the power of the abyss seems to be a crazy one as many factions start to fight over it and try to claim it. In regards to the other two playable characters though, we have seen little clips of you playing as these two other characters, but now we see some proper confirmation of it. One is a huge berserker, the other is more of an agile assassin type, but they tell us as the story progresses, these two characters will become playable. I thought maybe you play as them briefly during certain main missions or something, but no, when they're available, you can just full on play them and explore all of Playable with them, much like you would with Cliff. And we see that they fight differently. Cliff appears to be more of an all-rounder, while the other two lean more into one style of strength or dexterity as a focus. But they tell us that they have their own combat style, skills, and weapons. The assassin type clip is interesting. It uses a surprisingly large sword to two-hand slam and cleave multiple targets, which you would think is more berserker style, before then they swap to a very thin sword and a parry style buckler, only to then swap to a pistol and start firing, blasting targets between a very flashy sidestep dodge. On the other hand, you have the berserker, who also uses a ranged weapon, but this one's a slow charging cannon blast like his guts, before then swapping to a two-handed axe, spinning and cleaving, leaping up into the air and slamming. The enemies seem to stagger from the raw weight of all of this. and then he rolls back by leaping, firing the cannon mid-air, causing a sort of slow-mo for the aim. So yeah, they do have their own unique style and skills and weapons separate from one another, but they will also use bigger and smaller weapons irrelevant of that, and both have ranged combat options too. So the assassin's like slick and flowy, while the other is heavy and leaps and dives, for example. In another info dump then, we hear about questing and factions. Cliff's story takes the forefront right at the main story, but there are smaller scale issues and conflicts at play around the world. They tell us that you can take on non-main quest related adventures in any order you like. And we get a look at this map with a special faction overview. We see Lanford currently controls this logging camp, but a lot of those flags around the locations nearby. Then to the east, you see how along the water, this different faction flag is marked out. And then there's one or two like building in from that water. They're basically like encroaching, it looks like. So we're going to help with these fights, and this will mess with who controls what and where. There will be smaller scale stuff like more everyday side tasks and humble moments, but the faction context seems to heavily affect what's available. So while a faction might be friendly to you and offer you opportunities, another then will be hostile. And if a faction's invading, you need to defeat that invasion to sort of liberate locations. And as those locations become liberated, the area becomes safer to travel for your normal people, which then allows residents to return to homes they previously lost. Life returns to that area. Now there's trading available there, new quests and rewards. And because of this, you get new access to important materials like lumber and stone, which then you use to build back up your own faction, the Greymanes, and their home. We get a look at a few different factions at play though, like these very mystical, magical enemies, probably tied to the Abyss style magic. There's also these mechanical foes, like heavily armored units and technology-based robots and machines. They've told us that you can learn info about these locations, what's there, these enemies, unlock new skills, find new items and stuff by just interacting with the world, like speaking with other NPCs to learn about it, or just watching things take place and context cues. They say that these kind of clues will help you complete quests, or give you guidance on how to approach it. We'll see how that actually turns out. In regards to exploration, there's a lot to say. We see wall climbing on the side of mountains, but also in this clip, just up the side of a massive tree. I've seen in different gameplay footage a stamina system that's like Breath of the Wild, a circle laid around one another, so expect that. But a lot of the magical abilities will help you move around. We see this nature style magic being used to move sideways or up, forcing himself away from the tree or up and over the platform. Obviously the glider is going to be a key feature for getting around in general. But there's also this grapple. In this case, he attaches to a tower directly, dragging himself towards it to get to it. But in other gameplay, we see how you can use this to propel yourself, fling yourself around to get momentum, and then glide super quick after. The glider itself does have a booster of some kind, like Cliff is gliding as normal, but then spins to generate new momentum. How much can you do this and for how long? I'm not sure, but it looks like it's going to be a big distance you travel with it. So while we do have a lot of vertical exploration around the world, there's also classic ruins and tombs and hidden treasures and locations. There's this treasure hunting system here where Cliff finds a piece of paper and then it's an image with a location and a few X's marking these little holes. So maybe that's nearby and you gotta go dig there. Secret rooms like this room hidden behind a bookshelf, or how he uses this bow to break this wood to reveal a secret room with a chest. They claim that there's tons of surprises hidden around everywhere, saying that you can go pretty much anywhere and find something that should capture your interest. So they are promising that this open world is dense with stuff, which is good. Not to mention, finding new powerful equipment and upgrades in subtle and more hidden locations, but also the obvious stuff, whether it's an enemy camp or a stronghold to take on directly. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of traversal options. We see him flying around on a dragon, but we've also seen more humble stuff like riding a horse, or a wolf, or a bear, or a raptor. From these mounts you can also fight, but the mech seems the most involved of these mount options, with rockets and movement actually attached to it. Lastly to mention then is the Abyss and the powers. Above it all then is the main stage for puzzles, movement challenges, that kind of thing. It's the Abyss. These appear to be ancient ruins of some sort of magical civilization. That's how it looks anyway. So here we'll find lots of platforming challenges, observation puzzles, problem solving to do, and it involves a lot of the strange magical powers that we'll unlock through it. Very Zelda-esque temple challenges. Even stuff that really reminds me of Tears of the Kingdom, like holding an object with a telekinetic power and placing it into a slot, or pulling a door open, that kind of thing. But the abyss affects the world below. Parts of it are falling from the sky. So Cliff uses this special mode to reveal locations where there's abyss-related objects. By finding these, you can regularly collect abyss artifacts, and they apparently serve an important purpose. Confirmed to be required to unlock new abyss-related skills and also upgrade them. You'll get these artifacts as well from quest rewards and specific combat encounters, not just exploration, but will be, part of it. When we find these abyss locations, they'll also unlock us fast travel points, which will be nice for coming back to a challenge later or just getting around Pailune. But yeah, that's a lot of the added context we've had from the PlayStation overview. Good to get a little more info on these topics. And they're saying that we'll be back to do a similar highlight for the combat, the progression, and life in Pailune. So if there's new reveals and new info from that, we'll be back to cover it again. But we are getting close to release now. March is just over a month away. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been New, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.